Good morning from Helsinki. I have taken a lot longer to do a new video. I was going to do this whole series on Samuel Taylor Coleridge, but I reconsidered a lot of things that I thought about his poetry and read some new, interesting scholarship and speculation about um, meanings or inspiration for some of his poems, and so I got led down all these different paths. And so I'm just going to do it now. I'm just going to read out some of his poems. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the romantic um, British poet of the late 1700s, early 1800s, one of the great geniuses and mystics of the last several hundred years, who led poetry in a direction of um, more conversational tone, which people like Wordsworth took and ran with, but that you can still see vestiges of um, well into the 20th century. And he wrote this poem about just titled Kubla Khan. Uh, it's very well known, but it's full of possibility and contradiction and speculation. Even during his time, he claimed that it came to him in a dream and that it was actually supposed to be several hundred lines, or at least two or three hundred lines that just came to him. He was an opium addict. It could be an opium-fed dream, as some people have speculated. But he woke up one morning. He had been reading about, I think, Samuel Purchas's travelogues about visiting Xanadu, or, well, that's what it became known as, but Chengdu, the opulent summer palace of Kubla Khan. Um, and, and also, of course, Marco Polo visited there. We're talking about, in Coleridge's time, it was very, very remote. It was 500 years before he lived that these merchants and explorers from, um, you know, um, Europe were visiting and being allowed to have access to Kubla Khan's special pleasure dome. Um, and so that's what it all came out of. But one of my friends who writes a lot about obscure Roman poets, he's a translator, he's a thinker, a critic, an analyst. He also analyzes some of the mysteries of um, the Vatican, and has delved very deeply into kind of the esoteric um, architecture, history, stories of Rome and Torino and other places in Italy. And he did a series of essays on um, Coleridge's Kubla Khan, where he brings up the idea that it could be references to inner earth, to what some people call Agartha. Back in Pensacola, when I ran a wine bar, I once had a very, very curious fellow, very intelligent fellow, but who was clearly operating in a different realm than I think I am. And he came in and he had constructed a petition where he wanted the U.S. government to negotiate with the inner earth rulers in Agartha. I I questioned him a lot. We actually had a nice conversation. He was a very polite gentleman. He had some wine, and I decided not to sign the petition. I don't know how successful he was that day or any other day, but as far as I know, nothing has come of it. But it was a great conversation, very memorable. Um, but anyway, um, a close reading of this poem might lead you to this idea, like what is, this underground river, underground seas, caves, chasms. He keeps using this word cosmos, chasm. And it's also kind of fanciful. He makes up names of rivers and mountains, one of which is now the name of a great little winery in Swartland in South Africa, inspired by this poem. And this poem was also, I have to admit, like a lot of people, maybe the first time you heard the term Xanadu, Xanadu, was, there was a song, Olivia Newton-John, disco era, and there was also a movie called Xanadu. I actually saw it, I think, when I was a young kid. It was just played on TV one afternoon, about, I think it was some kind of artist down on his luck, but he gets this inspiration to open a disco club. No, a roller rink. Disco roller rink type of thing. And he calls it Xanadu. But, 200 years before that, Coleridge wasn't doing all this to create mindless pop culture. It was more something that he had to do. It was without his will, as he said. It came to him in this dream while he was reading this detailed travelogue by Purchas about visiting this special temple, which, as the name of the temple moved in European circles, it kept getting spelled differently, and then Coleridge is the guy who came up with the Xanadu, as far as I know. So I'm just going to read it, since I've already gone 7 minutes into this, and I don't know if I'm making any sense. But there's so much speculation about this poem. There was in his day, there's in our day, and I think it's always fascinating to think, alternative ideas, even if they may seem, utterly fanciful or impossible. Because, as Coleridge would have said himself, poetry is just choosing the best word and putting it in the right order. Like, he thought that good writing was just putting words in the right order. But poetry was this extra level that required this extra inspiration, and it was like lightning striking, maybe, that how can you come up with this string of words where each one is just in its right place. It's carefully selected, carefully weighed, and then it. It's like that idea that I know it's poetry when I read it or when I hear it. I can hear someone reading something in the other room. I don't know all the words, I don't hear all the words, but I know it's poetry. So I think we're just going to go through this one and see. It's been read many times. I'm not going to read it in any kind of special way. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he wrote this in 1797. And the other story is that Teddy Roosevelt, after his presidency, and after he had unsuccessfully run for a third term with the third party, the Bull Moose Party, he went on this expedition to the River of Doubt in Brazil, ill-fated. I think they lost men, they lost canoes, all kinds of drama, all kinds of disease, all kinds of accidents, and Teddy almost died a couple times. He got malaria, he had high fever, and then he was trying to save a canoe or something, and he got a gash on his leg, got infected, fever dream. So apparently, the great Teddy Roosevelt, who also spoke several languages and kept poetry in his mind, as we all should, he was repeating over and over the opening lines to Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kubla Khan when he was in his fever dream. And this poem supposedly came from maybe an opium dream or some kind of dream of Coleridge. So anyway, in Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Elf, the sacred river, ran through chasms measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers, were girdled round, And there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossom many an incense-bearing tree. And here were forests, ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, that deep romantic chasm, which slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover. A savage place, as holy and enchanted as air beneath a washing moon, was haunted by women wailing for the demon lover. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast, thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift, half-intermitted burst huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, or chaffy green beneath the thresher's flail. And mid these dancing rocks, at once and ever, it flung up momently the sacred river. 5 miles, meandering with a mazy motion, through wood and dale, the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns measurable to man, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. And mid this tumult, Kubla heard from afar ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, the sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. A damsel with a dulcimer, in a vision I once saw. It was an obsidian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song, to such a deep delight 'twould win me, that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware. His flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honey dew hath fed and drank the milk of paradise. So that's like an okay reading of Kubla Khan by Coleridge. I made 2 mistakes in words, and I thought about stopping and cutting this and re-recording, but I'm just going to put it as is, because I think, as so many people, so many great artists, musicians, poets, anything, said that all good works of art deserve to be done with a little slip here and there, or a little error. It's fine, you know. And this poem certainly wasn't perfect. Coleridge knew it, because he thought he had 200 or 300 lines in his mind, and then there's the famous story about one he was like, it's almost like, and if you're in that creative moment, you know it. It's like, especially, it's not typing, but it's like with an actual pen or pencil. It's like you're being guided by greater forces. And then somebody came through the door where he was staying, where he was at his study writing, the man from Porlock, with business, and got him out of that vision, got him out of that inspiration, got him out of his frenzy. And so, but even in his day, like, other people said, well, he's just saying that because, he lost the thread himself, but he's trying to blame someone else for it. Yeah. Who knows? But that story has remained and has been retold many, many times since then. That this man, who was visiting this house where Coleridge was staying, had some drab, droll business that he had to conduct, and he came at the wrong time when Coleridge was receiving from above this beautiful poem that would last for the ages and that could be interpreted and reinterpreted in each new age and inspire, disco in the 70s and 80s. So anyway, it's just on its own, it's beautiful. And so one reason that I do these is just because I find as a practice, speaking, writing, thinking, reading great poetry, it sets your mind on a different path. And I find that I can do everything else in a day so much better when I've started it with great poetry. Not good poetry, great poetry. And I think we've lost that a lot, because we think it's just entertainment or it's just something fun or fanciful or a cute way of wording things. And it's not at all. It ignites your mind in ways that you can't even imagine. And that I think one of the ways that we can redeem this degraded culture that we live in is through getting back to the word, language, beauty, truth that can come through only great writing. And it's accessible to everybody. It may take a while to get into the groove, but once you start reading people like Coleridge, you're not going to go back to anything less, I don't think. But, he was a deeply troubled person himself. He did great things, but he had tremendous self-doubt in his day. And some days he was brilliant, and some days he was just off in all kinds of meandering, rambling tangents, like when he was writing or when he was speaking. And so, with somebody like that, like what he created is truly beyond measure, and there's a reason why it survives to this day. There's a little commotion in the back. We're in the holiday season here. I'm in a shopping mall, actually the largest shopping mall in the Nordic countries, the Mall of Tripla in Pasila in Helsinki. And so it's good, especially in this time of year, to pause, reflect. It only takes 20-30 minutes, but I got into this world of Kubla Khan and its potential meanings and its origin story that I knew before, but I took a deeper dive into it, and that's why I haven't done one of these videos in a while. But I want to get back to Coleridge. I'm going to do more Coleridge. I'm going to do some others as well. I hope you have a fantastic day and that you read more poetry. Thank you, and cheers.